What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's Netflix original review of A Classic Horror Story. This film was directed by Roberto and Paolo Strippoli. Now, before we begin, hey, if you like this channel, awesome, hit that subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification as always to find out what's coming next. If you like any of these videos, awesome, hit that like button, as well as comment below any video that you watch, including this one. So this movie, A Classic Horror Story, is an Italian horror film that is about a group of travelers, one of them played by Matilda Lutz, who's actually a pretty well-known actress at this point, and they, for some reason, carpool in this camper, and in the process, they're traveling down the road. For whatever reason, they're trying to get to a location, and they see some kind of sheep or goat in the middle of the road, and they crash into a tree. They wake up in the middle of the forest somewhere where there's this house and a couple other houses and stuff like that. And as we know from, if you watch the trailer or know what a classic horror story is, they are being attacked by an evil, which in this essence is a cult, which is in a lot of movies, similar to something like The Wicker Man in a lot of aspects. And what ends up happening, as we know, things go really wrong, and they have to survive, not being attacked, but the problem is they can't seem to get out of the woods. And so this movie premiered at the Taormina Film Festival, which is an Italian film festival. It's of course an Italian horror film, as I said. And I'm gonna be fairly honest, I haven't seen a lot of Italian horror films recently, and for a while. A lot of them have been from Spain or Mexico or Germany or even Russia, but an Italian horror film, which I think are some of the best horror films, the Dario Argento and stuff like that, are some reason hit like few and far between. Maybe I'm missing something, I don't know, but for this being one of the first films from Italy that I've seen in quite a while that's a horror film, it's kind of a little depressing in a lot of ways. But with that said, I was really looking forward to it. I like the trailer, I like the idea it's just a classic horror story with tropes and stuff like that, so I was really excited to see this. Thank you to Netflix for allowing me to see it early, of course. And I'll say this, I really like this movie. I think it's fantastic. I think it deconstructs a lot of great horror moments and horror tropes. The characters are very stereotypical. If you ever watched, the Cabin in the Woods, you'll understand that you have like the main lead, you have a couple of the goofy other characters, you have like the stoner character and stuff like that. You have like the lead male character, and when the kind of gore, which is this movie is very, very violent, by the way. When the gore starts happening, when the violence starts happening, it really kicks into high gear. It feels like if Eli Roth directed an Italian horror film, but was less torture porn in a lot of ways, which I'm telling you, there's a lot of crazy violence. I'm surprised this movie is rated R because there's some really disturbing content in this movie. And it's a movie that I just kind of fell in love with. The first 30 minutes or first 20 minutes are just them on the road talking, and then it goes into the horror tropes, and when it eventually leads to a conclusion that really kind of is very interesting. And that's why I'm going to get into the ending explains. It's just a very kind of what I wasn't expecting. I was expecting this to be a traditional Italian classic horror film, and it actually subverts my expectations. So this is one I definitely highly recommend. It's in the vein of Censor or Gaia or Come True or any of these horror films that have been coming out in the last few years, where they really take the horror genre very seriously and they do a really nice job with it. Though some of the characters aren't well written or well developed, that's not the point of a horror story. A horror story is to make you feel something, which I guess is a lot of films, but in this essence, horror films have a sense of trying to make you feel something truly experiencing, I guess you could say, something that is not what you expect or want to see, but is something that gives you makes your heart bounce a little bit. And that's what I think DeFeo and Strippoli do a really nice job with. I also think they do a really nice job with the camera work, the slow moving movements, the color, and the gels they use to make the world vibrant and also horrifying. I think they go back to like traditional roots of horror films, like the Sam Raimi's Evil Deads and stuff like that. And overall, I just think this movie is a winner for when it comes to horror films. Is it perfect? No, because it does stumble a lot of times when it comes to what these cult-like members are there for and what they're doing, but when it starts kicking in high gear, it really works. So that is my review of this film. That will lead into the spoiler take as well as the ending explains, which I know a lot of people are like really confused, like, why are you putting ending explains in your thumbnails? Well, it's still an ending explains, but still gives spoiler stuff through the movie, so it's in essence spoiler review / ending explains. So with that said, like this movie, definitely recommend it. So let's go ahead and do it in the spoiler review ending explains. So when you're watching horror films and you see enough of them, you can kind of tell who is going to be the main bad guy or the person that's going to set up the situational aspect of this movie. And there's a character named Fabrizio who is the one that sets up the carpooling, I guess you could say. And I'm sitting there watching and I'm like, there's something off and weird about this character. And just the whole setup and whole idea, he's obviously has something more to him. And I end up being right. You're going to see it when you watch it. You're going to understand that there's more to this character than meets the eye in a lot of aspects. And basically, what makes this movie so unique and what makes like the ending, 30, 40 minutes so compelling is that he talks about this is kind of the cool deconstruction of this character Fabrizio. He is actually explaining to you what is going on, what is like exactly happening, but he's doing it in a very nonchalant way. So he's talking about the mafia. He's talking about horror films in general, about how this seems like a horror setup. And what he's doing is he's doing a bait and switch on these people who are very much, very innocent people, but have the very stereotypical characters about them. So for instance, we have the young blonde-headed woman who's, very sexualized. We have the male lead who's a doctor who's very much like the Chris Hemsworth movie in Cabin in the Woods. Matilda Lutz's character is very much the girl, the innocent girl. And then we have, a couple other characters, stuff like that. Fabrizio's like the pothead kid, like the Franz Kranz character in A Cabin in the Woods. And so the movie plays out, people start dying, a couple characters die, and so on and so forth. It's very typical horror elements and whatnot. I was going, man, I hope this is more than just a, classic horror film, which I really did enjoy in the end, but I was wanting just a little more punch to my movie. And so after everybody dies, people get their sacrifice. So one guy gets very much like Misery, very inspired with the hobbling of his feet. His eyes get taken out of his head, which is, oh my God, it's so violent. It's so crazy, this movie. The other ones get sacrificed to get their ears cut off and then their throats slashed and, they're sacrificed to gods and stuff like that. But it's very typical horror stuff. It's very much in line of what you would see like in an Eli Roth movie or, any of these Dario Argento movies, like the very gory type films and stuff, whatnot, and so on and so forth. And then the movie decides it's going to pull a twist. So Matilda Lutz's character is captured, of course. Fabrizio reveals himself, and we find a very Midsummer-like sequence where she's like nailed like Jesus, I guess you could say, to the the wheelchair that she's in. She watches all these people, like weird people, eat and stuff like that, and we see a woman at the end of the table who explains that she's part of the mafia, who is in control of these people. So, like I said, Fabrizio is very much in line with, the mafia. So, what ends up happening is Matilda's character is brought to this room that is this big camera feed system. We see all the locations that they visited in the movie. They're all under surveillance. And we find out that Fabrizio is the son of that woman who is the mafia woman. And they are doing very much video nasties. They are creating, in essence, like video porn, video gore, real life black market tapes of people being killed. Because as Fabrizio says in the movie, this is what people want. People like to go dark and deep. We like the black market. And it's a movie about basically the sinister nature of the human condition, of the human mind, about how individuals love the uncomfortable nature of the blood news, the news when you see war and violence and everything. So what they did is the three heads of the Italian mafia have started filming violent gore content. And because it's so successful, Fabrizio, who is a spoiled asshole, excuse my language, but he is a spoiled brat because he throws a temper tantrum, is basically the directors of these movies. And it's very disturbing to think about that this guy has killed so many people and that these people are sacrifices for entertainment. But if you look at Cabin in the Woods or The Running Man, or, I'm sure I'm forgetting stuff, but there's other movies like Death Race. It's very much what instills the bloodlust in our brains, our mind. We love this type of crap. This is the type of stuff that we get off on, especially if you're very disturbed. You can say that, say whatever you want about it, but there's people out there, that love this kind of content. And I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of content is something that's truly happened before that we just don't hear about. But in essence, that's what this movie is trying to do, is trying to give you a traditional classic horror story that this guy Fabrizio has created of his love for horror films, but he's taken it to the next level, similar to like something in Censor with the Video Nasties, where it is so over the top and so violent and realistic that it is selling like hotcakes, and so they keep doing it. Like, you see all these trailers, and you see all this costuming, you see all the masks that they wear. It's basically our view of the world through cell phones and videos and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty crazy thing to think about. You know, there's this young girl who supposedly has her tongue cut out, but she is like the sister of the Fabrizio character, and she's part of an actor, and all these people are actors, and they're just working for the mafia, and it's some really crazy stuff that's going on in this movie, and that's in essence what it's doing, because, you know, when Matilda Lutz's character finally gets the upper hand, she has a shotgun, she wears one of the masks, stuff like that, she kills Fabrizio, she kills that young girl, and she starts walking through the woods, she's bleeding, she's almost passed out, and in essence, she comes across a young boy who's wearing swimming gear, and so she runs or walks towards him and stuff like that. She goes under a fence. We see the fence is part of a military base, which is even more crazy to think about. Maybe the military is part of this whole thing, or maybe it's maybe it's an Area 51 situation where it's unclosed. You have no idea what's going on. And she ends up on a beach. People have their cameras out, so you know this stuff's going to be posted on Twitter. Facebook is also about social media and stuff like that. And she walks out to the ocean, and that's where the movie leaves off, which means it can mean either way, that she died or lived. It's just she's finally seeing water in the ocean. She feels like she's free, and yeah, the movie ends there. And like I said, you can take it for what if she died because she's bleeding into the water, if she lived. It's just all depending on your kind of idealism of what you think happens at the end of this movie. But in essence, the movie is about our view of culture, our view of our bloodlust, our just way we look at life in general. And it's a very compelling horror story that takes this material and actually subverts it for what I was not expecting. That's why I really love this movie. You know, the horror stuff is entertaining, but this made it a whole different level. And I wrote to my friend, I said, this movie meets like Midsummer, meets The Running Man, meets, you know, Evil Dead, meets Cabin in the Woods. It's all these types of films that I'm pretty sure that these directors are very inspired by. But once again, it's a very cool, very stylized movie that kind of takes the movie and kind of runs with it, and I really respect that for it. So in the end, you get your horror elements, you get your subversive elements, and you just get a really, really cool horror story that plays out completely different. It's like The Hunt or something like that, where it's just not what you're expecting. But with that said, that is going to be the end of my spoiler-filled / ending explains portion of this movie. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your honest opinion of this movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you have a differencing of opinion on what you think this movie is about? Let me know in the comments below. But otherwise, if you like what you see on this video, awesome. Hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.